Hello, this is Glen Lennox.
Getting out there and actually walking the property, walking around with neighbors. There's a church that's very close to the property, talking to those folks, and just being out there, realizing that this property was prime for some sort of redevelopment, and we knew that it had to happen.
We're talking with Penny Rich today. Penny has been a Grubb Properties fan for a number of years and was a strong supporter of the Glen Lennox development agreement process during her time on the Chapel Hill Town Council. She recently finished an 8-year tenure with the Orange County Board of Commissioners and currently occupies her time advocating for affordable housing and economic development in Orange County, which were two primary platforms during her career in local government.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, early on as a Chapel Hill Town Council member, it was one of those processes, this development agreement process that, honestly, I did not know a whole lot about. And that year to 18-month period really opened up my eyes, let's put it that way. So I won my election to the Chapel Hill Town Council in 2009. And at that time, Grubb Properties had already put a concept plan into the Chapel Hill Town Council for redevelopment. And so I was not part of that original concept plan, yet we know that the neighbors and folks that lived in Glen Lennox were not happy with that concept plan. So moving forward, the mayor then, Mark Kleinschmidt, and the planning department and Clay Grubb decided that we're going to take a step back and create a development agreement process that would take place over a couple of months, close to a year, and have some people from the town council and some neighbors, of course the developer and the planning department, all on this committee. The mayor wanted to have someone fresh, new eyes look at the property and someone experienced. And since I had only been on the council for a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two, the mayor thought that he would ask me to be involved with this process. So I agreed to do it and thought it would be a great learning experience moving forward. I didn't know too much about the process itself or about zoning in Chapel Hill, so I took this opportunity to learn as much as I could. The first thing I did was go out and take a look at the property and walk the neighborhood with the neighbors and just listen to their concerns. Honestly, change is hard, and they were concerned about the change of this neighborhood. You got to remember, Glen Lennox is nostalgic. It has a lot of history of people living there. Maybe it was their first apartment before they could afford a house, or they just got married, or they were grad students. So there was a lot of nostalgia there, and people don't like change, as we know, or they feel uncomfortable with the change. So the neighbors were afraid that if there were some tall buildings that were going to go up right against their neighborhood, that it would be out of place. And I think one of the most important things, as we talked about this development agreement, was to make sure that that didn't happen. So if there were going to be buildings that were going to be taller, they were going to be in the inside of the property, allowing it to sort of taper off to the outside, where then the neighborhood would just continue on to the existing homes. So it wouldn't feel like there was the older neighborhood and then here's the new Glen Lennox. That was really important to the neighbors. And so, everything that we were doing on the town council at the time, we wanted to make sure that that happened all over town. And you can see that with some of the setbacks on the tall buildings along 54, as well as on Rosemary Street and Franklin Street. If you look at some of the newer, taller buildings, 6, 8 stories, you'll see that as they're facing the curb, you'll have a little bit of a setback until they get higher in the air. It makes it feel like there's more space there. So that's something that was really important. And as Chapel Hill started to redevelop, and it had to go vertical because we've pretty much run out of land to build single-family homes in Chapel Hill. And we still know that people want to come and live in Chapel Hill. So what do? We have to create the vertical homes. And to this day, there's controversy over that, whether that's the right thing to do or not. But people still want to come and live here and experience Chapel Hill. So that was one of the things I think that Clay, in the original plan, the concept plan, wasn't quite grasping onto. But as soon as we started these conversations and the neighbors were involved and started really looking at the process of the development agreement, it became clearer and clearer of what needed to happen. So that was the beginning of the process, just getting out there and walking around. Then when we started meeting, the first meeting I met Clay and some of the folks from Grub Properties came along, and the neighbors, there must have been 50 or 60 neighbors there the first meeting. It was really an eye-opener how involved people wanted to be in the redevelopment of Glen Lennox. And what happened with me is that I started realizing how important it was to involve the community in some of this decision-making process. And I think that Clay realized that also, and that's why he agreed to take a step back and go to the development agreement process to make sure that we had enough input from folks and that the buy-in was there. So when you do start seeing that land being redeveloped, you're not shocked. So the first impressions were people were very willing to sit at the table and have the conversations. Really kudos to Clay and his management team. They were at every meeting, and you got to remember Clay was driving in from Charlotte. I don't think Clay ever missed a meeting. If he did, it might have been one meeting for one of his children's games or something like that. But otherwise, he was driving in from Charlotte to meet with us. That was impressive. I mean, that really showed that him and his team really cared and wanted to be part of the Chapel Hill community, not just come in and be the developer, but really be part of the community. Another thing that was really impressive about Clay and the folks that were part of the property development team is that they realized the importance of building something that was very close to what would have been the light rail station and public transportation. And so Clay got it. Clay understood not only about building market value housing, but also getting some affordable housing in there, and also having a walkable neighborhood that could use public transportation. Those things were really impressive to me and allowed me to open up my eyes and my brain and everything to just sort of feel like Clay really did want to be part of what the Chapel Hill experience was.
Thanks for listening to part 1 of this 2-part episode of Hello, Glen Lennox, a series we've created to explore the rich history of the beloved Chapel Hill neighborhood and the important role it played in the forming of the town we know today. To listen to other Hello, Glen Lennox episodes, or to see what's new in the neighborhood, click the What's Happening link at glenlennoxvision.com.